Hey guys, thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. This is the first actual session for the Startup Launch Competition. Appreciate you guys taking out time out of your busy schedules to make it. So you can always give us feedback after each session, but we'll get started now, and then we'll just kind of just keep going from there. So week one is orientation. We're going to start off by going over some of the stuff we went over in the info session for you guys who couldn't make it. Then we're going to go over some other tips, some other pieces of advice, and what to expect for the rest of the program. So first, we'll tell you guys a little bit about us. I'm sure you guys are like, what is OneSixOne? Who are these guys? So we were literally on the exact opposite side. We went through the Gator Hatchery, both of us. We started startups here at UF. We both met through the Entrepreneurship Club. And we just realized that there wasn't enough resources for people to start startups. You know, there's a few other competitions on campus, but you know, we wanted something like they have out west, you know, at Stanford and some of these guys in Silicon Valley. So we went and we set out and created it, just like how you guys are setting out to create some of your solutions for problems. So in the past 15 months, we've been able to help about 35 companies. We've helped them raise $6 million. We've helped them generate $4.75 million in revenue and helped them acquire 800,000+ users. So far, we've been able to at least help you know, a lot of different founders, probably about 60 founders altogether. So we want to be able to do the same things for you guys as well. One of the companies that we really helped a lot, it was called SimpleBet. So they're a micro betting sports platform. So instead of the traditional bets that you would place, is LeBron and the Lakers going to win? Are they going to lose? They have 400 different opportunities where you can make micro bets inside of the game. So instead of saying, okay, they're going to win or they're going to lose, you could say, all right, they're going to make 3 free throws. They're going to make the next 3-pointer. We introduced them to Florida funders. They gave them $2.6 million and a $100 million valuation. And then you guys know the YouTube boxer, Jake Paul? He launched his own fund called the Anti-Fund. They just invested $30 million at a $300 million valuation. So that's what kind of put us on the map at first. You know, they looked at me and Pablo, they said, hey, you guys are young, you guys are, you know, inexperienced. But that deal kind of gave us a lot of credibility in the state, and now we're scouts for Florida funders. So we have access to a lot of other VCs as well, you know, when you guys are ready to start raising capital and going to market. Another company, Rise, Harvard graduate named Rashad. He was working for Maxwell House, didn't like coffee, which is very ironic. Hated caffeine, so he pitched them on, I mean, I'm sure you guys see the dairy alternative market is absolutely blowing up. Soy milk, oat milk, almond milk. He said the caffeine alternative market is also following the same trend. People are looking for healthy alternatives. So he set out, created his own mushroom blend for coffee, ended up pitching to Maxwell House. They said no, it's going to cannibalize the rest of their products. He literally took his 401k, took his salary, went back to his parents' basement. We got in touch with him. Once I heard that he's in his parents' basement, I said, I want you in our program. You know, you're betting it all. You know, you believe in what you're working on. That's a great sign for a founder. So we had him go through our program. When he first was coming through our program, he was doing about $10,000 a month, selling all online, direct to consumer. Just last month, he broke $320,000 in sales, and we just helped him raise $700,000 from a firm called PS27 based out of Jacksonville.
So we're going to go over a little bit about what we're going to be covering over the next 10 weeks here in the program. So this is kind of a rundown. This is just a preview of what we're covering each session. So today, just orientation. We're going to give you guys the opportunity to get up, talk about your companies. For those of you who don't have companies and are looking for others, we'll give you guys time to network, meet other founders. Next week, we're talking about startup myths and evaluating ideas, so how to know if you have a good idea. We're going to talk about, third week, we're talking about building an MVP, which is really important, how to get your product out there as fast as possible and actually start learning and talking to users. After that, we're going to talk about launching and talking to users, so it's a good transition there. And then we're going to bring somebody in to talk about marketing, getting those first couple of customers, and then how to set KPIs, so how to track whether you're on the right track, whether your company is growing, whether you have a high churn, right? Our customers coming in, they're paying for your monthly service, and then the next week they're leaving because it's not a good product. So this is a rundown. We'll send you guys the full curriculum so you guys can have that and know what to expect each week. And then what we're also going to do is every single week there's going to be a YouTube video we're going to send out to each person to watch. That's going to be pretty much what we covered but being taught by somebody else who's a successful founder. So these are going to be typically on YouTube. We'll send it to you guys. And then, we highly recommend you guys see it. It's not going to be very long usually, like 10, 20 minutes. So this is something we talked about last week, but we're going to go over it briefly right now. I see there's a lot of new faces in the room. So what are some reasons to start a startup? For those of you who weren't here last week, what do you think what would be reasons that you would start a startup? And people can put their hands up.
Solve a problem.
Great. You're paying attention.
There you go. Yeah, I guess shouldn't have put it on the board for you guys. Made it too easy. So yeah, basically, if you want to make an impact or contribution to the world, you want to improve something, make the quality of life better, that's a good reason. Freedom, whether it's having the freedom to travel, having the freedom to do whatever you want with your time, or just financial freedom, right? Not having to worry about stressing about bills monthly and being in debt. Of course, that goes hand in hand with money. And then another reason that people don't think about super often, but if you're unemployable, which we had a mentor, Martin Schaffel, he actually donated $1 million to UF, and he was my professor here at UF my last semester. And he used to say that he basically, out of college, he went to the business college here, graduated in '79. His first 2 jobs out of UF, he got fired from. And after getting fired from that second job, he realized that he was a terrible employee and that he just needed to start his own company. So oftentimes, if you make a really bad employee, sometimes that means you could be a good entrepreneur. Not always. Don't use it as an excuse to slack off in your job and then be like, okay, I must be an entrepreneur. And then the last reason, oh, you have a question?
What was the name again?
The professor,
Yeah.
Martin Schaffel. He goes by Marty. Yeah, he lives in Tampa. The last one is you're going to learn more starting a startup than you would doing anything else, except possibly joining an early stage startup that has a really sharp CEO that you get to work closely with and learn from him or her. So the reason for that is that startups, by default, the way startups succeed is you have to continue to move extremely fast, which you're going to fail very fast, and that's where the learning comes in, by making those mistakes. So about the competition, so how do you qualify for the $10,000? So these weekly sessions are going to be open to any students, and then we're going to have some speakers we're going to bring in as well that pretty high profile. Those are going to be open to anybody in the community. So anybody can sit in here, but as far as qualifying for the $10,000, one of your co-founders needs to be a student at UF or Santa Fe. It could be you, it could be your partner or co-founder. And then if you haven't talked about equity, that's okay. I put that up there just in case there's a company that's already established, that already, maybe they just want to find a student and be like, hey, why don't you pretend to be our co-founder, get in this competition and win us $10,000. So that's the reason I put the 20% there. You've got to complete your weekly progress updates. It doesn't take a lot of time. It shouldn't be more than 5 or 10 minutes max per week. And then we'll go into a little bit more detail about how to do those later. And then you must be a startup. So we'll talk about that in a second, that certain businesses don't qualify as startups. So here it is. So what qualifies as a startup? Well, if you're taking something that already exists, but you're tackling it from a different perspective, or you have a very unique solution, it could be a product that's already out there, but you're doing something completely different. Or maybe, for example, the coffee, right? There's nothing new about coffee, but he just took coffee, made it, basically put a little bit of caffeine in there, and then mixed it with mushrooms. And all of a sudden, it's a new, different product. So that would qualify. It must be scalable, so it must be something that can grow really big, really fast. To give you an example of something that wouldn't be scalable, for example, like a restaurant. It's not scalable because if you want to get 1 million people to your restaurant per day, then you need a bunch of different restaurants, or you need like the biggest location ever. And then you need a ton of staff. So you need 1 million employees to serve 1 million people. That's not scalable because your costs are going up as you're bringing on more and more customers. So, like I said, it could be an existing product with a unique twist, and then it must be in a large market or a market that's growing very, very fast. So here are some examples. So if you have a consulting business or maybe like a coaching business where you're coaching people, maybe personal training, something like this, that wouldn't necessarily qualify. It's not really scalable. If you're a coach, you can't scale yourself because you're only one person and you only have 24 hours in a day. There's only a certain number of customers you can take on. So that's not really scalable. But if you decide to build some software that coaches can use or a marketplace for coaches to meet clients, that would qualify. If you just are really into e-commerce and you're building your own online store and you want to sell all kinds of products that you think are cool or interesting, that wouldn't necessarily qualify unless there's some unique twist on it. But if you have a really unique product or maybe a unique product line, that would qualify. And then again, the example that I made of the restaurants. But you could create something that's like software, mobile app that restaurants could use that would make their lives easier. So talking about weekly updates, we're going to go through some examples in a second, but just speaking broadly, so bad updates, they're going to be a little bit vague. You're not going to really include much numbers in there. You're not really confessing, really, or not telling the full story. Maybe something like, hey, yeah, we're doing great. Everything's going good. We've worked on the product. It's looking better. So being too broad, not talking about what challenges you're facing. That's something that we need to know about because the whole idea of this program is for us to be able to help you. And if you're absolutely crushing it every week, then we can't help you because we don't know what you're struggling with. So, and then not being clear. So just try to be very specific about things and being very clear. So good updates, obviously the opposite of that. So everything that you should be working on every single week should be tied to the long-term vision of what you're trying to build. And typically in the early days, what you'll find is that the two most important things where you should be dedicating almost all your time is talking to customers or potential customers and building your products and getting your products ready for market. So here's an example of a bad weekly update. We're getting a lot of users without any advertising and growing fast. We have been working on improving the product and also are preparing to launch a marketing campaign. So again, this is not good because it's too vague. It doesn't really share any challenges that you're facing. And then if you look at it like we have been working on improving product. Okay, what did you do for product, right? It doesn't take that many more words. You could say, oh, we worked on the UI of the product. We worked on the social component of the product. And then here's an example of a good one. And again, this doesn't have to be this long. This is an example of like something that would be like really, really good, but it's not necessary. And some of this wouldn't even be relevant if your company's not already generating revenue. So this past week, we followed up with 5 leads about potentially using our product. We weren't able to close any of them, but they seem interested. We also made some tweaks to improve the UI, UX based on some feedback we got last week. And so far, over 80% of our previous users are using our product at least once a week. So this is good because it's including actual numbers and it's talking about, okay, we're trying to close leads, but we haven't actually closed them yet. So maybe it's like you're telling the full picture here. You're sharing the full picture. So what criteria are we going to use to pick the winner for the $10,000? Well, we're going to use the same criteria that we would use if we were going to invest in a company. And so some of the biggest things that we would look at are the 4 things on the board. So number 1, traction. So what have you done in the past 10 weeks? How many customers have you gotten? How many users have you gotten? Revenue generated? And if you have none of that, do you have at least like LOIs, which are letters of intent? So do you have people lined up to use your product? Maybe a waiting list, right? Just to validate the market, to show people actually want to use this. The team. So obviously we're going to be getting weekly updates from you guys. So we're going to get to know you guys a little bit better. So is this somebody who is constantly looking to learn and they're asking the right questions, right? They're being completely transparent about what they need help with. And they're really going after it, right? So every single week they're setting weekly goals and they're actually achieving those goals, or at least attempting to. What stage is the product at? Again, it could be user count, it could be letters of intent, and then of course the market is something that we would never ignore. What space are you in? Is this a tiny market that's really obscure and this thing couldn't possibly get bigger than $100,000 a year in revenue one day? Or is it something that it's solving a really big problem for a lot of people, and maybe this could be huge one day, could generate over $10 million a month one day? So I'll stop there. We'll take some questions, and then we're going to get into another topic, one of the first most important topics that we want to cover over the next 10 weeks. So any questions?
When is the first statement?
So the first weekly update is going to be due this upcoming Sunday, but that, for this weekly update, since we're just starting out, it's totally fine if you just say, hey, this is what we're working on, this is where we're at right now, and this is what we're going to do in the next week. So that's totally fine, because it is Wednesday, there's only about 4 or 5 more days. So yeah, but it's going to be every Sunday by 11:59. And what we're going to do over the next 2 days, we're going to share Excel sheets with each of you guys. And then we want you to go in there and just put your company name, brief description of your company, and then the names of your founders, basically. And then that's the sheet that you're going to go to every single week to put your weekly updates. So any other questions? Nothing? All right. We're going to get into the next part. So what we're going to talk about is how to do your 30-second pitch or your 1 or 2-liner. And this is incredibly important because you're going to use this when you're communicating with other people in this class, when you're trying to get those first couple of users or customers. You're going to have to describe what you do in a clear and concise way. And if there's no way to describe your product without taking 3 minutes to explain everything, or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then you're going to have a lot of trouble getting customers, finding co-founders, because people have short attention spans. And there's a lot of you here. There's probably 30 different companies in this room, right? If you're going to go around and try to meet everybody, you don't necessarily have 5 minutes to describe what you do. You might just have 30 seconds or 1 minute. So a really good pitch, 30-second pitch, is just clear and concise, straight to the point. So every word you're saying is for a purpose, just to describe exactly what it is you're doing. Obviously, the less that you say is more. What you want is to say enough that somebody's genuinely curious and they have questions and they want to learn more, but not enough that you've bored them and they're not interested anymore. So, and then if you can do this in 30 seconds, what you want to do is you want the person, you don't necessarily have to say this, but you want the person that you're talking to understand what is the problem you're solving, what is your solution, and what's unique about your solution. If you can do that in 30 seconds, then you did a really good job with your 30-second pitch. So we're going to go through some examples in their videos, so I hope they play. And these are just going to be clips that I pulled from YouTube of actual pitches. Some of the companies you'll actually recognize because they're pretty big now. But this is when they were just starting out. I only pulled out the first sentence because I want you guys to see how, just how quick that you can understand what their company does in just one sentence. I believe the first one is actually Steve Jobs. So this one is a little bit different than the other ones, but we'll play it just so you guys can see how he introduced the iPhone to the world.
3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device.
So, as you can see, he made that extremely simple. This is before smartphones existed, so you couldn't just say the word smartphone. He was explaining a product that was completely new, never existed before. So,
Hi,
We're DoorDash, and we enable every restaurant to deliver. For customers, we offer restaurant food delivery in under 45 minutes.
Did you see how simple that was? In literally like less than 10 seconds, you know exactly what his company does. And this is when they were going out to try to raise that first round of funding.
Okay, my name's Drew, and I'll be showing you a quick tour of Dropbox, which is a new way to store and share files online.
That's simple. And this is actually before he even built the product. He created this video demo just to show other people what he was going to work on, right? So this ties in with what we're going to cover in week 3, which is building your MVP. This is a great MVP, minimum viable product. It's not something that you can actually interact with, but something you can see and you know exactly what it does just by seeing it. And also, that was extremely quick, and it's like a new way to store files online. It's so simple. And then one more.
Hi, we're Ginkgo Bioworks. We genetically engineer microbes to produce natural ingredients.
So I included this one because it's a lot more complex. And this is a company that just went public. And I don't know what the market cap is, but it's definitely worth billions of dollars, possibly over 10 billion. And this is a little bit more complex, but notice how simple he made that. He said one sentence. There could be a lot of people might hear that and say, okay, I have some questions about it, or I still don't know what they do, but I know kind of the direction they're in. But it was just one sentence.
He's wearing a Jurassic Park shirt too. So
Yeah, I know.
we genetically engineer things. Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty clever. So any questions on doing your 30-second pitch? All right, sounds like you guys all got it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little exercise. We're going to put a timer. We'll put 5 minutes on the board. And what we want you guys all to do is find somebody close to you. If there's like a group of 3, that's totally fine. And then we want you guys to take turns. We want one person to hold up their phone with a 30-second timer, and then the other person to explain what they do. When the timer goes off, they have to stop. So you have 30 seconds to explain what your company does. So this is what we're going to do. We'll put 5 minutes. If we need a little bit more, we can do that. But yeah, go ahead and pair up with your neighbors and get to it.
So what you guys just did, super important, selling, right? No matter what, either you need to figure out how to sell or you need to figure out how to get somebody on your team who knows how to sell. It's really important if you're a technical person. If you know how to sell, find a technical person. But either way, somebody needs to know how to sell. At the end of the day, there's different stakeholders, and you'll always be having to sell something to somebody. Even if you just go work for a company, what are you doing? You're selling yourself to the company, right? No matter what. So you'll have to sell investors when you're raising money. You'll have to sell customers when you're trying to get revenue, and you'll have to sell your first key hires to get on your team in the first place. So at the end of the day, make sure that this whole entire pitch exercise was to teach you the importance of selling. Like I said, you're going to have to do it all the time. Second part of selling, getting money, right? There's a lot of things that money can help solve. If you guys are having problems internally in the company, there's a way for you guys to get revenue, be able to bring on more key hires, be able to maybe pay for a new database, maybe be able to pay for new computers. There's so many things that revenue can help with, and selling will help you get there. Third of all, when you're selling, right, you don't want to only sell based on what your product does. You want to sell on the benefit. So, somebody could tell you about the BMW or the Mercedes-Benz, about how it has a turbo engine and this and that. At the end of the day, why does somebody buy a Mercedes-Benz? What it does for you, right? You hop in the Mercedes, you feel different, you look different, people treat you different. That's why people buy. You want to sell something based on the benefit of what you're giving them. So, and then lastly, less is more. I'm not going to go over there, just like they said the first sentence, when people have questions, that's a good thing. I want to say just the beginning part so that you have questions and leave you wanting more. Now I'm in a position where you're coming to me asking for more, out of curiosity. You want to always keep people curious, keep them engaged, just kind of give them little bits of info, because if not, you're going to overwhelm them, and then they're just going to look at you and be like, what do you do? What are you selling? I have no idea who you are. So it's kind of like a running joke that we have. We go through a 10, 20-minute presentation. After the presentation, we're like, what do you do? You just spent 20 minutes just rambling.
It happens all the time. You'd be surprised.
Yeah. So learn how to sell or figure out somebody who can sell with you. Next, goal setting, right? So Harvard did a study, right? And they went through the freshman to senior year. The freshman year, right, they looked down everybody who had written goals, but also a plan of action for those goals. It was 84% of the people their freshman year who had goals, right, never had any goals written down, didn't have a plan of action. The 13% who did by their senior year were making twice as much as the 84% who didn't have anything written down. Now the 3% who had it written down and a plan of action made 10 times more than both parties, right? So writing it down, verbalizing it, making a plan of action, goals are gonna help you guys focus on where you need to go. If not, it's like a ship without a map, right? What direction am I even going in? It's like Alice in Wonderland, right? They go, oh, which way should I go? Which way do you wanna go? I don't know. Well, then go anywhere, right? Why does it even matter? Start to have a place where you wanna end up, set those goals, and then you could make a plan of action on how to step into that direction. And that'll help your whole entire team too, because you might know where you're going, but does everybody else on your team know also? How are they supposed to make decisions that are leading them in the right direction if they don't even know what direction you guys want to go in the first place? And then lastly, SMART goals. So I'm sure some of you guys familiar with SMART goals. You should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based, right? You could look it up. It's everybody. Everything has to be very specific, and it has to be achievable. You can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna make $1 million in the next 2 days. You know, it's like not realistic, and you know you guys are gonna end up failing, and people get overwhelmed, and that's how people quit. So try to build SMART goals. Also, equity. So some of you guys might have your companies built, some of you guys might just have an idea right now, but equity is a tool. Equity is literally just a percentage of the company that you own, okay? So equity is gonna be a tool for you guys to be able to bring on other key hires, right? And you don't wanna, like I said in the second part, you don't wanna be greedy. You don't wanna think, I need 100% of this company. Well, what's 100% is nothing. You can keep 100% of nothing, you're not gonna have anything. You know, what's giving out 10% and not giving them a piece of the pie, but now you just made the pie bigger. You know, you're giving somebody 10%, now it could be a $100 million company. Sorry. So you know, you don't want to be greedy with equity. You want to incentivize people to work with you, to work for you, to build a product. You know, like I said, you don't want 100% of nothing. And then we'll go over a lot of this other stuff in some later talks and maybe weeks in the curriculum. But there's something called a vesting schedule, right? We have paperwork on that. We have contracts that we'll be able to share with you guys. But you're not just going to give somebody, you know, 30% of your company. They work for 2 weeks. They quit. Now you have 70% and they still have a piece of the pie, right? There's going to be vesting, and sometimes investors will make you as a founder vest your own equity, right? So basically, the common theme on vesting is there's a 1-year cliff. If you don't work for the company before the whole 1 year is done, right there you get 0. And then after the 1 year, you might get 25%. Then every month after that, you'll get like 1/8%, or you know 1/4 of your stuff vests each year after that. So basically, it's just a tool so that you don't give somebody equity. They work for 2 weeks and they quit. So we'll help you guys out with that as time comes on. We'll also have some lawyers come in and speak and help you guys with all the other stuff. And then fourth of all, the company is going to own all the IP. You guys can't think like, oh, I'm going to own all this, and then I'm still going to have the company, and I'm going to raise. Like, let's say I created a patent. The patent is not going to go in my name. The company is going to own the patent. When an investor invests into a company, they're going to want to get in on that patent. They don't want to get in on your idea without any intellectual property. That's only for specific companies. In software, it's not as big. But that's just a little tool right there. And then about formation. So some of you guys, like I said, might just have an idea right now. Some of you guys might already have legal entities. But there's basically 2 routes that I would advise if you guys want to actually get started. The first one is the easiest, it's the cheapest, it's the quickest. I could do it in 10 minutes on my laptop. It's a Florida LLC. You go to sunbiz.org. It's like $125. You could register your name, write down who else is on the company, and then literally it's registered like that day. The second part is if once, and you can always convert. You don't have to go straight to the second part. You can convert from Florida LLC to a Delaware C Corp. But once you guys want to raise investor money, they're most likely going to ask you to be a Delaware C Corp. That's because the legal structure and the tax structure is common and everybody understands it. It's like some crazy statistic, like 80 or 90% of all large corporations are filed in Delaware, but none of the corporations are even based in Delaware or have offices in Delaware. So it's like really weird, but everybody understands the tax structure, everybody understands how the legal structure works. It's basically the legal structure of board members, corporate officers, shareholders, and how all of that works. So that's why they make you file there. So if you want to get started, file Florida LLC, then you can convert later on. If you think you're ready to tackle the whole entire Delaware stuff, then you can do that. And then I'm just going to go over some general advice. So this is stuff that we learned from launching our own startups and being with other founders. So the biggest part is that I see it so many times, you don't want to fall in love with the solution you create, right? Your first idea is never going to be the one that makes it to the top, right? You're always going to have to reiterate your idea, repivot. So what you want to really fall in love with is the problem, not the solution. Don't fall in love with what you're building, fall in love with the actual problem itself. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to want to pivot, you're going to think that your idea is the greatest, and you're not going to want to take advice from the market after they tell you they might not like this feature, they might not like how the UI works, they might not like the way that, the messaging in the app works. But people are just so dead set and in love with their little baby they created, they don't want to listen to anybody else. So make sure that you're not being like that, lose your ego, because if not, it's not going to work out. Second of all, you have to not be scared to fail, right? You want to fail fast and you want to fail hard. The faster you fail, the better, honestly. We were just talking with a VC the other day, and he was like, just seeing how he thought. He said, what do you think of failure? I said, I love it. He said, oh, do you want to invest in founders that failed? Yeah, I do, right? Because they learned. They understand you're going to have to listen. You're going to have to build differently. You're going to fail multiple times. Your objective is to go out there and fail as fast as you can, as hard as you can. If not, you'll wait 2 years before you launch your product. You'll be scared to fail. You won't even hit the market. I just saw a founder the other day, and he just wants to post on Facebook and maybe get some users. While I'm out there in Turlington literally flying, passing out. I don't care if somebody laughs at me. I don't care, right? I want to fail. The more people that laugh, the more times that I hear that just means I'm going farther and farther towards what I'm trying to build, right? So you want to fail, and you want to fail fast. Also, money is real, surveys are not, right? Back to what I just said earlier. People want to build behind a computer. You can't always build behind a computer. We hear founders all the time, yeah, 87% of my market says that they would purchase my product, and 87% of the people, is it because you're asking them, would you use this? And they're like, yeah, check, right? Are they going to pay you? Even if it's $1, can you get somebody to pay you right now, right? That's a bigger metric than me getting all these surveys that don't mean anything. So at the end of the day, get out there, get some feedback, build some data, but that's not a real metric on if you're going to fail or if you're going to succeed. Get out there, really see if you can make a transaction happen. Even if it's 10 cents. Be like, hey, I'm willing to give my product out for free, but for you, I just want to see if somebody will pay for it. Can you give me 10 cents? Can you Venmo me $1 right now? See what they say. Also, you're going to have to talk to your users and talk to your customers, right? Too many times people just build a product, and one of my first startups, that was one of my biggest failures, is that I just built in private based on everything that I thought people wanted. Then when I brought it to the market, I realized nobody wanted it, right? Instead of just building with them in the beginning, talking to your users every week, hey, do you like this? Okay, maybe not. All right, hey, do you like this? Instead, I spent 4 months building the product based on all of my assumptions, instead of trying to validate these assumptions with my users. So that's a big, no. You just want to always talk to your users every time. If you can learn one thing out of this whole talk today, just talk to your customers. That's it. They're going to tell you, the market will tell you what they like and what they don't like. Also, another piece of really great advice, narrow versus wide, right? So too many times we see people launch a product and they're like, okay, who's the user, right? Who's the customer? Say everybody, right? Okay, maybe everybody could use it, but you need to start somewhere. Too many times we see, for example, we just saw this company, they launched a product, they say, oh, property managers could use this, other people who own houses could use this, people who want to rent could use this, and all of a sudden they're taking all these little bits of advice they just built so wide instead of starting with one community that all of a sudden they get advice from 10 different types of users based on 10 different use cases, right? And built a Frankenstein product because it might do this for this person, but it does that for this person, and it does something else for somebody else. Now, I don't need any of this product because you built it for 40 different people, right? I needed it for one case. So you don't want to have something really thin and really wide. You want to build really narrow, really deep with one type of use case, one type of community, and then from there you can go on to your next community, your next use case, keep dominating the market, but you need to start somewhere. You can't start with everybody.
If you build something for everyone, you're building something for no one. It's the same thing.
100%. And I mean, you guys are all here, so you're already getting started, but I mean, start before you're ready. You know, too many times we hear people who are just, you know, oh, I want to start it eventually. In 2 years, I'm going to eventually get started. Start now. You need to get those reps in. Your first few times, like I said, it's not going to work. You know, that's just statistically. You know, 2% of all startups end up succeeding, but if you do it 10 times, what are you at? Maybe 20%, so you have a better chance. You want to get those reps in, right? Just start now. Well, I met this one millionaire, he said, Justice, start before you're ready. I said, God damn it, you're right. You know, get started, go after it, make it happen. What are you doing? Why not? Because you have a fear of failure? It's great. Go out there and fail. Go do it. And also, don't keep it a secret. You know, you don't need to be hiding in your closet and think that, you know, somebody's going to steal your idea. I remember when I was like my first startup, I was like, oh, I'm not going to tell anybody. Then when I really realized, I was like, holy shit, this is hard. I was like, I will tell anybody, because if you could do it, congratulations. You know, I mean, it's all about execution. It's not about the idea. You know, if you could do it, wow, I want to build with you. Like, I would love you if you went and did it. So literally, don't be scared. Don't make every single person you talk to sign an NDA and never tell anybody. And then that's literally a sure sign that if nobody's ever going to use it, nobody's ever going to hear about it, right? The more people you tell, like literally they did a thought experiment. What's the first person you think of if you needed a service? No. No, like I'm talking about like the process on it. The last person who told you. Right? If you were just like, hey, I need my lawn, or I need a haircut. You're like, who did I get a haircut from? Who's the last person that told me? That's how it works. The human mind can't register through 1 million people and think about the most qualified person. You just thought about the last person that told you something. So you need to always be telling everybody about your idea. Tell everybody that you're working on. You never know, he might have a cousin who wants to purchase my product. He might have a friend who could work with me and help me build the back end. You know, so there's all this stuff. You need to be talking to people. You can't just be hiding in your basement trying to build it. And then lastly, do things that don't scale. So, you know, there's a lot of different examples of this. But you know, when people build it out, they want the full entire product. They want to build out the app totally. Sometimes you just need to do something that gets out there and just to validate the idea. Of course, this isn't going to be your final product. Of course, this isn't going to be the way you're going to do this forever. But you need to be out there and be scrappy. Like, for example, I was in a hackathon before. I got kicked out of 2 different grocery stores just because I was in there just talking to users. Can I build my business off going into grocery stores and bothering people, seeing if they want to buy it? No. But at the end of the day, this is how I'm going to get my first 10 users. And this is how I'm going to be able to build with them. This is how I'm going to get feedback from my product. This is how I'm going to be able to start. So at the beginning, you're going to have to do things that don't scale. Just get out there, get scrappy, get your hands dirty, fail fast. Who cares? Don't cry. Let's do it. So those are some pieces of advice. I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions on what I just talked about?
I was going to ask, like, what's the difference between like S corps and C corps again? Like, why would you go to the
Taxes.
It's just a tax thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Legal structure. So there are some online resources for all that, but there have been many cases that have gone through the Delaware legal structure for how things happen with corporations, which is why it's so well understood there. So it's not like some random state where it's like, oh, we've never seen this before. What is going to happen?
Right.
Nah, they know what they're doing there.
Questions? No? Cool. Yep. No, I just turned your on. All right, cool. So if you guys want, you could scan the QR code to join the Slack group. Also, it's on the website.